Good day, everyone. I'm Constance Smith, and I'm here to present to you one of Bermuda's newest authors, Mrs. Myra Lorraine Smith. Mrs. Smith has written a new book of poetry. It's entitled Quiet Time. Quiet Time is both inspirational and historical, in that Mrs. Smith shares her experiences of living in Bermuda, both of today and from yesteryear. Mrs. Smith, how did you first start to write poetry? Tell us about Quiet Time.
Quiet time. Every day between 3 and 4, while waiting for my grandkids to come home from school, I would sit in a chair and take what I considered quiet time. Initially, I used to either listen to the radio, read a book, or watch television. And one day, I said to myself, why not just really take quiet time? Put all the material away, turn off the radio, just turn off everything, which I did. And while taking this quiet time, a little still voice whispered in my ear these words: my quiet time is reserved for you to tarry with me for a while, to hear your soft voice speak to me and imagine your tender smile. And these words, they rhymed. And that's how I started to write poetry. And I named the first poem, Oh God, because I realized that it was God speaking.
That's a wonderful poem. That's one of my favorite as well. Mrs. Smith, is there another poem that you would like to read for the listening audience from the book of poetry?
I think I'd like to read My Grandchild's Nap.
Okay.
It was time for her nap. Her eyes were a peak. Hurrying through lunch, the bedroom we did seek. Drowsy with sleep, on the pillow she laid. Grandma, tell me a story. A real story, she said. A real story I told her, of many a family tale, using all our names, moving down the scale. Then she slowly drifted off into a child's angelic sleep, with a sweet smile on her face that I shall forever keep.
Some of Mrs. Smith's poems are about Bermuda of yesteryear, and the one that she's about to read now is entitled Neighborhood Mom. So please listen and see if you can find any cues from a Bermuda of days gone by.
This one is entitled Neighborhood Mom, and it's about my aunt. My aunt was very dear to me, and to many others too. The neighborhood mom, you could call her. Her cookies we would often chew. The children around adored her. At her door, they would often knock. Do you have any string? Would be the question. I would like to put my kite up. A perfected and respected seamstress, she claimed a special place at her machine, seated daily sewing the latest fashions, putting them neatly together, seam by seam. God called her on that day. She left with perfect grace. The image of her is fondly remembered, sitting in that very special place.
Very nice. One of Mrs. Smith's poems talks about her very own baptism that took place in the waters of Horseshoe Bay. Let's listen as Mrs. Smith reads about the baptism.
The ocean was calm that day in May, in a little cove at the end of Horseshoe Bay. With the pastor included, the number was 7, as we waded in the water under the sunlit heaven, surrounded by brethren, in chorus, joyfully singing, we witness to the world a glorious new beginning.
That's very inspirational. Thank you for sharing those poems with us, Mrs. Smith. And I'd like to mention that these books can be gotten in time for Christmas, and you'll find them here at the ABC in Hamilton on King Street, and you'll find them in local bookstores as well. A.S. Cooper, the Bermuda Bookstore, and Caesar's Pharmacy in Somerset. Thank you, Mrs. Smith, and please enjoy your quiet time.
You can shop for this book all year round online at www.breakthrough.com.